Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Riker, the Toronto Raptors just won the NBA Championship, but we were swinging straight into the offseason because there's been a massive blockbuster trade happen out in the Western Conference. Anthony Davis is sent to the LA Lakers for Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, the number 4 pick in this year's draft, and a bunch of future first-round picks. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors, they're champions of the world right now, and this possibly makes another contender in the Western Conference that if we do end up keeping Kawhi Leonard and making it to the NBA Finals again, that we could possibly match up with in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, but you're right. He's being now teamed up with LeBron James, which is what...
Yep.
That's the reason that it came to the top of your mind. And this was all the speculation back when Anthony Davis, the word came out that he was demanding a trade from the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, the Vegas odds have the Lakers now pinned at the number 1 team to win the NBA championship next season, which I think is a little bit ridiculous because I'm pretty sure that the Vegas odds had the Lakers pinned as the number 1 team to win the NBA championship as soon as LeBron made the move from Cleveland over to LA this most recent season that just happened. And I was very skeptical about how good the Lakers were actually going to be given they were a bad team, and all that they did was kept the exact same core and then just add LeBron James. LeBron James doesn't guarantee a championship appearance, and by no extent does he guarantee an NBA Finals. The actual trophy. But Ben, this to me is more promising for the Pelicans than it is for the Lakers. I don't know about you.
Yeah, so if you just take this trade in a vacuum, the LA Lakers lost pretty well all of their depth in this trade. They did end up keeping Kuzma, but the rest of the roster is extremely depleted. But knowing LeBron James' team, knowing that we're entering free agency now, they're probably going to pick up some more players. And the fact that the LA Lakers are number 1 on the odds, I think right now that's because of the speculation on where the other players are going. Now, the Golden State Warriors obviously lost 2 of their top guys. The Toronto Raptors, they're not sure if Kawhi Leonard's going to stay or not. So I think if Kawhi ends up staying, that the odds will change and shift into the Raptors' favor. But you brought up the point. You think this trade was more beneficial for the Pelicans. And I think that's a very fair statement because they got a lot of young assets. But next season, I think it does make the LA Lakers better, assuming they pick up a more well-rounded roster. And do you agree with the odds makers? Do you think a team with LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, and filled in with probably the Ray Allen types, the three-point shooting guys that seem to flock to LeBron every offseason, do you think a team like that, constructed as it is, could come out of the Western Conference next season?
No, not even close, Ben. Not even close. And we can't bring up this without bringing up the New York Knicks. And I think that this is the reason that maybe the odds have tipped into the favor of the Los Angeles Lakers, is because really the Knicks are going to be devastated this offseason. They were expecting to land a guy like, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Yep. And they were expecting to use their pick to boost them as well, or maybe flip him away for another big title prolific player. But now that Kevin Durant, even if you land him, even if you sign him, he has an entire season that he won't be able to play, right? Anthony Davis is now shifting over to the Lakers. Reports are confirming somewhat that Kyrie Irving is set to go over to the Brooklyn Nets. Kemba Walker is set in his convictions to stay in Charlotte, or so he says. He would rather take a pay cut and stay in Charlotte than take a supermax and go and play with another team. So I don't know who the heck the Knicks are going to land. Maybe there is more pull now to go to the Lakers, given they have a partial super team being constructed, right? But I just don't see who the next piece is that they would bring in. Because we've already shown that this season, the Toronto Raptors, with only one superstar on the team in Kawhi Leonard, and now maybe he's so many miles above every other superstar in this league that he's able to do that. But the formula this season really proved to be that you need a solid all-around team in order to win the NBA Finals. And if the Warriors had Steph Curry, and even though Kevin Durant went down, as we said, for the majority of the series they had Klay Thompson, they still have DeMarcus Cousins, they still have Draymond Green, still have Andre Iguodala. With that many pieces, they still didn't have the depth enough to beat the Toronto Raptors because our bench went out and killed them. So to say that, only 2 guys plus a few decent role players to be on the Lakers to win or to get out of the West, I don't think it's possible.
That's a very fair statement. I'll contradict you because I'm still on the fence about this team. But when I look in a positive light at the LA Lakers, when you're constructing an NBA team, you brought up the point you need to have a well-rounded roster. And that's what Masai Ujiri did, because that's kind of the hand he was dealt with the Toronto Raptors. And honestly, he did it to perfection. He brought in a bunch of guys because he wasn't getting these superstar teams like the Heat or the Warriors, free agents just going there left, right, and center. He had to build around... he got the superstar in Kawhi Leonard, obviously, but then he had to build Pascal Siakam, who's quickly becoming an all-star player in this league, a playoff-tested veteran in Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, who will show up in the moment and not have issues, Kyle Lowry to command and be the leader of this roster. The Toronto Raptors are well constructed with semi-star players that fit together perfectly. But this is kind of the outlier, so to speak, over the past few years. You can look back to maybe the Dallas Mavericks and the Detroit Pistons in the early 2000s. Other than that, most of the teams that have won the championship are what are called, you guys know, everyone knows as super teams. So in this trade, you always want to trade lesser valued pieces. I know on First Take they always use the analogy trading 4 quarters for $1. You wanna trade the lesser valued pieces for that superstar, especially if you're pairing them with another superstar. So I think a team with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and if I'm not super high on Kyle Kuzma, but a lot of people are, with those three, but he's still a very good player. Those 3 guys, I think, do concentrate the talent for the LA Lakers at the top, where they could have the best player in a lot of series in the Western Conference. LeBron usually in the past would be the best player, but now with AD and LeBron, I think they're going to only elevate each other, and it's going to be interesting how they construct all the team around them, what Frank Vogel's looking to do with this roster, and I personally could see the LA Lakers coming out of the West, especially with the Golden State Warriors sustaining a bunch of injuries.
This is another issue though, Ben, is that the Lakers have no culture. Right, they have no culture as a team. They have no identity. This most recent season,
on the basketball court,
this most recent season was a disaster. You'd expect a guy of the veteran caliber of LeBron James and all that he's accomplished over the past 8 years and bringing a team to the finals every single season. He comes in and he really disrupts the young guys that they have. He brings fear into the locker room. It's well documented that they all had suspected that they were going to get traded because LeBron didn't want them. The coaching staff was mismanaged. Magic Johnson randomly steps down. There's no culture. So just to bring in a guy like Anthony Davis, I still think that they're resetting from ground zero. They need to figure out how this team is going to operate, what kind of team they want to be, what the coaching mentality is. And that starts from all the way from the GM down to the last player on the bench. I think that takes more than one season to figure out, and we also really need to think long and hard. How many years left does LeBron have being the most dominant player in the league, and when's he going to tip the scale and head down the other side?
Yeah, certainly, and it's going to be interesting because LeBron sustained an injury last year. If that trend continues, Anthony Davis is going to be on with a worse supporting cast than he had in New Orleans. And that New Orleans team could barely make the playoffs year in, year out. So maybe the Lakers might not make the playoffs if LeBron and Anthony Davis sustain injuries. But I agree with your statement, but I think that is more so due to the fact that LeBron James is playing with a bunch of young guys. And when he realized he wasn't getting a second star, and after his injury they weren't going to make the playoffs, I think LeBron put it into cruise control. He realized that he's going to look to the future, and he's an older guy now, and he has to rest his body. So that led, when your best player is putting it in cruise control, as you mentioned, the culture is just going to be in complete flux. So I think maybe they could turn it around quicker than maybe you give them credit for. But you say that the Lakers, you don't see them coming out of the West at all. What teams do you think should the Raptors worry about going into a possible NBA Finals? Obviously, that is extremely far away. We're talking from an extremely broad perspective. But what teams, especially with the Golden State Warriors, KD being out all next year, torn ACL, Klay could be out all next season, but he'll probably come back unhealthy in March or whatever. What team do you think the Raptors should be worried about in a meta perspective for an possible NBA Finals matchup?
Well, Ben, but I'll answer this question, right? Assuming that the Raptors have Kawhi Leonard, and then maybe we can finish the podcast with me asking you, does this now incentivize Kawhi Leonard to go to the Lakers instead of the Clippers or the Nets or any of the other teams that have been circulating? But I think if the Raptors were to be able to run it back, right, go round 2 with the currently assembled roster that they had, I think the Rockets, they've always been in the mix. Their future looks pretty dim after the end of this season because they have a lot of guys locked in on big contracts. James Harden and Chris Paul. There's a lot of question marks around them and their actual ability to be stars come playoff time, right? Because of the style of basketball that they play. But the Rockets have to be locked in, and they just offered their coach D'Antoni, I think, a 2-year deal.
Extension.
Yeah, they gave him an extension. He demanded one. He didn't deserve it. He's a fantastic coach, right? But his style of play in the playoffs 2 seasons was never able to change and adapt to the Golden State Warriors to get over that hurdle. But now I don't see what the next hurdle is. I don't think that Portland is a legitimate contender, and I've always been high on the OKC Thunder. And although my stock and my appreciation for the players that are Paul George and Russell Westbrook went severely down based off of their performance and attitude this most recent playoffs, I don't expect them to play as bad 2 seasons in a row. I think that they're going a hard look at the drawing board, and I think that they're going to come back a more revitalized team that I would expect, honestly, to make a legitimate push come playoff time next season. So I think that those 2 teams would be the biggest challenges for the Raptors. I think that the Golden State, you're right, I think that they're going to slip down the ranks in the leaderboards a little bit. But, like I said, Ben, is this incentive now for Kawhi to want to go and team up in LA with a few other stars and maybe take the load or, take the number one importance off of him? Or does he enjoy being the number one guy now?
I don't see him going to the Lakers. Personally, I've kind of said that the whole year. I don't really see Kawhi Leonard ending up in a Lakers uniform, playing with LeBron, being in that shadow, being a second fiddle to that roster. I think if he leaves, it's to the LA Clippers. I think that's the only other possible situation, because the Clippers, in my opinion, are worse Raptors, worsely run, a little bit less better run, a little bit less talent on the Clippers, but it is in LA, so that's the only intriguing factor. I don't really see him leaving for the Lakers, and maybe, in my opinion, it might deter him more, because the LA Lakers, I think we both agree, have gotten better from this trade. But to maybe the extent we disagree on, but the LA Lakers are a lot better, and maybe Kawhi looks at that, and if he isn't even the best team in his city, that might be a bit of a deterring factor, but I don't really think it's going to factor in that much. Kawhi, we're going to speculate on Kawhi for a lot, so we can leave that to future videos, but to bring up the points you made about the other teams, I saw a rumor. I don't want to report it and say as fake news or whatever, but I did hear that Chris Paul might be requesting a trade from the Rockets. That's something I read on Twitter. That might be completely fake. And
you might be requesting a trade, but as we've seen, you don't need to give a player a trade when they request it. And also, this could be the new presentation from GM and management on the Rocket side to sit down Chris Paul and say, hey, look, this is now the window. Now we've been saying it for 2 seasons, it's do or die, but this is the real do or die season. Then we can get rid of you.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see Chris Paul being moved, but we have a long off season. We can react to any moves like that happen. OKC, I'm not super high on. I think still, if it's not the Lakers, I'd still have to put the Warriors with Klay coming back. I think Steph Curry, he's my new pick for MVP next year. I think the Warriors are still going to be a strong title contender. But I'm not, especially after LeBron James, he fell off this season. I'm not a big fan of LeBron James and what he did to the Toronto Raptors every year. Like, I respect his game and all that, but I'm not the biggest fan of him. I'm not the biggest fan of AD, but I'm going to be rooting for the LA Lakers, especially if Kawhi Leonard stays, because I want a finals matchup of the Toronto Raptors, the LA Lakers, so the Toronto Raptors can finally get their revenge on LeBron James. Riker, I want to see a finals matchup where the Raptors finally come full circle and face their biggest demon ever in franchise history in LeBron, and hopefully end up getting a W.
Well, Ben, if you put it that way, I am 100% on board.
Yeah. How sweet would that be?
It would be sweet. I think the rest of the league would recognize that too. It's been, everybody loves to poke fun at how LeBron is the biggest obstacle ever for how he owns basically the Toronto Raptors. I don't think anybody has forgotten that, so I think that would be a special finals, not just for Toronto fans, but I think they would be more engaged with that one even than the Golden State Warriors matchup. So that, I agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
I would be cheering for the Lakers as well.
Yeah, just so that possibility of the Raptors playing the Lakers in the finals will be there. But anyways, let us know what you guys think. You're the best for making this far. This is extreme speculation. We don't even know if Kawhi is going to stay, what the teams are going to look like. But we want to just bring up some talking points about this trade. and get the juices flowing about the next season, because the Toronto Raptors are champions and we're trying to repeat next year, so we got to break down all of the possible contenders. Are you guys worried about the Lakers? Do you think they got better from this trade? Leave it down. Let us know in the comment section below. I apologize, my throat is gone in this podcast, but yeah, check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Riker, any last words?
Ben, free agency off season, my favorite time of the year, and it's starting off with a bang. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, cheers.